Catherine was so kind to introduce Eric. He is here. Eric Ewers is the director and the producer of the documentary. Also, Samantha Fisher, right next to him, is with us tonight, one of the participants in the film. We also have several local mental health professionals joining us on the panel this evening, and we will look forward to hearing from them. First, though, why don't I get the introductions going and see, my whole idea was to, while you were all getting seated and mic'd, I would get the introductions out of the way, and you all beat me to it. Let me introduce everyone. Eric Ewers is the co-director and editor of the film. He has worked with documentary filmmaker Ken Burns, as Ewers likes to say, ever since the Civil War. And of course, that's one of his fantastic documentaries. For more than 30 years, Eric has edited nearly all of Ken Burns' award-winning films, including Baseball, Jazz, National Parks, The Roosevelt, The War, the Vietnam War, some of the most acclaimed documentaries ever on television. Eric was also senior editor on Country Music and Hemingway, nominated for numerous Emmy Awards. He is the co-director and senior editor at Ewers Brothers Productions, and that is a preferred collaborative company in co-creation of Ken Burns films. And the Ewers Brothers co-directed with Ken to create the 2-hour film, The Mayo Clinic. That was on PBS back in 2018, and then their partnership continued with the June 2022 broadcast of the film series Hiding in Plain Sight, Youth Mental Illness. He and his brother, Chris, are currently working on another documentary. It is on America's adult mental health crisis, as well as a 3-hour film on the life and legacy of the 19th century writer and environmentalist Henry David Thoreau, which will be fantastic. We'll look forward to that. Please bring them both to PBS, will you? And we'll look forward to that. Samantha Fisher is a lead early Head Start teacher, an advocate and writer. She is a passionate educator and advocate who approaches each day with a commitment to nurturing the whole child. With over 10 years now of experience in working with children, she focuses on helping young learners develop emotional regulation and coping skills to support their growth. She is currently pursuing an associate's degree in early childhood education, and she is also a writer and a poet, currently working on her 3rd collection. Fantastic. Please join me in welcoming Samantha Fisher. And I'm going to go, nope, I'm not going out of order. Next to Samantha is Amanda Balris-Allen. She is the executive director of NAMI, Champlain Valley. Amanda leads the nonprofit NAMI organization that provides support, education, and advocacy services to individuals struggling with their mental health. Next to Amanda is Rochelle Gregory. With the Clinton County, she is the Clinton County Director of Community Services. She serves as the Chief Executive Officer of the Community Services Board, which includes the Office of Mental Health, Office of Addiction Services and Supports, and the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. Rochelle, thank you so much for being here. Next to Rochelle is Rachel Abramson. She is the Director of Home and Community-Based Services for Behavioral Health Services North. She is a licensed mental health counselor with over 8 years of working directly or overseeing those working in community settings. She currently oversees BHSN's home and community-based services and also the core programs and the Children and Family Treatment and Support Services program. And finally, Keegan Chamberlain is the Behavioral Interventionist Coordinator for BHSN. His range of experience comes from his time working at the Inpatient University of Florida Psychiatric Center to providing mental health care for older adults in Florida, and now coordinating BHSN's program in the North Country that prioritizes the mental health of youth in our schools. Keegan, thank you very much for being here with us tonight, and our thanks to the panel for participating tonight. Eric, why don't we start with you? Could you tell us why did you make this film, and what made you choose mental illness, youth mental illness, as the focus of the film?
Well, I wish it was a more dramatic story. The original and true reason why we made this film is because we were asked. Ken Burns has a way of volunteering his esteemed colleagues for different projects, and it was an opportunity for my brother and I to really tackle something that was out of the normal historical documentary realm that we had been working in. But the other answer, which is of equal truth, is that my life was marked by a lot of trouble in my family, a lot of dysfunction. I was never taught anything about mental health or mental illness growing up. I didn't know anything about that, but I did know that my family was a little dysfunctional, and the problems that I had experienced as a child only grew worse and worse, and it is no accident that my own mental health crisis occurred while we were working on this film. And that's because these young people, with their bravery and courage, talking about what they have been through, allowed me the opportunity as a 50-year-old adult to see myself in their stories. And it gave me the courage to start on my own path to wellness. And it's the experience of watching the film that my brother and I made actually helped my mental health. And that's the message, I think, that goes out there to everyone who is willing to watch this film, is that it's a hard topic, but it's also can be very uplifting, very comforting, and reassuring that you are not alone, that there are other people. And one of my favorite quotes, I'll end with this, Key Dunning in the introduction, she says, "Mental illness is just life." Like Assemblyman Jones said, stop the stigma. It's just life. Everyone goes through hardship. Some people just need a little bit more help standing back up.
And Eric, why do you think these young people that you interviewed for the film were so willing to open up and talk so freely about some of their darkest and most personal experiences?
Well, it's amazing because each time my brother and I went to do an interview, we were very nervous about causing these young people to re-experience hardship and adversity. What we found was something I still am just astonished and humbled by. McLean, 11 years old, told us his entire life story. He didn't hold back. And by the end of the interview, I thought he would be crestfallen and just, quiet. He was happy. He was exuberant. He was alive. And I asked him, "Why are you so happy?" And he said, "Because talking about it sets the issue free. I own it. I can control it." And he said, "All I want to do is help other people feel that feeling." And I think we just were on this path of learning along with these youth, these young people, how to talk about it. And the more they talked, the more they opened up, the better they felt. So it turned out not to be such a hard task at all, but an invigorating one.
And do you think the fact that they were so open, so real, so honest about what they've experienced, that really connected with and touched the viewer?
Absolutely. My brother employed this new technique. It's called eye direct. It's something he attaches to the camera so that the person I'm interviewing looks straight into the camera lens, but like a teleprompter, they see my face instead of words. So they're talking to me in the lens, they can see me, but they're talking to you. They're looking into your living room or kitchen, wherever you have your TV, and they're talking to you directly. The whole point was to make it feel like a personal conversation. Even the way we edited this film, it's like a group therapy conversation where sometimes, and you saw in the clip, sometimes it's just a comforting word that someone gives after someone else talks about their hardship. It's a balance of love and care and truth and honesty. And the only other thing I'll say real quickly, Xavier, the young African-American boy who also is of Native American descent and Mexican, he finally, for the first time, opened up about the abuse of his father, from his father, for the first time ever on camera. He had never talked about it with his mother or with his therapist. He told me. And afterwards, I asked him, I said, "Are you sure you're comfortable with that?" And he said, "Absolutely, because someone out there might realize that they have an out too, and I waited too long to do it." And again, it just speaks to the incredible power and intimacy and the willingness of these brave, brave young people. And they're all doing well today.
Thank you, Eric. Samantha, thank you for joining us tonight. You grew up in Vermont, but now you live in Texas, so thank you for coming all the way from Texas here to Plattsburgh to be with us tonight. The film really is such an intimate look at the mental health challenges that many of our kids and teenagers and young adults in America are facing. I'd like to start by asking you, what was it like to take part in this documentary and to share your story?
I think it was really fun, actually, to take part in it. I don't shut up ever. So I remember I went to meet with Eric and I think David.
Yep. You were interview number one.
Yeah, I was the first person interviewed, and in a group full of people, I was the only person that wouldn't shut up about it. And I really just like talking about it, because I think the more you talk about it, the more it's just normalized and it's whatever. And then they came to my house for 6 hours, and I got to talk more about it. So that was really fun. I got to meet really cool people, and I think coming from like a very small town, it's just something I never even contemplated doing. And then I got to be a part of the whole process. I got to see different like cuts and screenings as we went on over Zoom, and that was a whole thing I had never even, I don't think I knew what went into doing a documentary at all. So the whole process was fun, and talking about it, I felt better after every time, just like he was talking about with the other interviewees. So it was good.
When you were asked by the filmmakers to share your deeply personal story with a national audience, did you have any hesitation at all about doing this?
No, I mean, I thought it was fake at first. Like, I didn't think it was a real thing that was being offered to me, and everybody in my life already knew everything I was going through, and they already, in and out of the mental hospital, in and out of therapy, missing school all the time. It was nothing new for anybody in my life, I think, to hear it, and I had no problem talking about it. So in my brain, I'm like, whatever, it's just like another therapy session, except this lasted hours. That was the only difference, and I didn't have to pay for it with insurance, so, yeah.
And you've just touched on this a little. Did taking part in this documentary help you, and if so, how?
I think it helped me be more articulate about what I'm talking about, and it gave me a bigger network of people that I can talk to. I met Eric and all the other interviewees. I think I've gotten to meet almost everybody at this point. We met up in D.C. when we screened it for Congress and at the White House, and that was really cool. So now I have like a big group of friends, people all over the country doing all different things. Kevin actually sends me merch because he raps, so I get like his DVDs now, or his CDs now, and like shirts from his albums, which I think is really cool. So I think it's helped me open up, be more comfortable with people, and also have a bigger network to talk about all of this with.
Excellent. And will that swag be in the lobby? Can folks get it on the way out? Just kidding. Just kidding. The rest of our panel, Rochelle, thank you so much for being here. Could you tell us the biggest concerns when it comes to mental health here in our community right now? And as a society and community, what can we do better to address the needs of young people and their mental health needs?
So right now, I think the greatest challenge in our community is the lack of resources. I don't think we're unique in that community, but we don't have the resources, the man or woman power to support people in our community, given the acuity and the numbers of people that are struggling that we're seeing now. I think it's very important to recognize that we don't have infrastructures in place in our community to support individuals at the levels that they need support and where they need to go to get resources and help. Also, I think that youth specifically are kind of the canaries in the coal mine, and they're telling us they're struggling. They're telling us that our environments are not healthy or welcoming, and they're not a place that they feel safe. So I think we really need to listen to that, and we really need to put things in place that make children feel accepted and safe and supported throughout their journey. And that needs to stand for everyone. We need to create environments that are safe havens for youth, where they're comfortable sharing their story. And the key to this is connectedness. And I think some of the messages and behaviors that we're getting from youth is they don't feel connected. And so we need to build places where they're accepted and connected.
Thank you. And Rachel, what types of challenges do you see in the young people that you deal with?
I would say, can you hear me? I've got a loud voice, I can yell. Good? Okay. So I would say in general, I think a lot of the youth that I work with or oversee, the practitioners working with them, just don't feel seen and heard. So like she's explaining, they're saying, this is what I need, I'm not liking this, whether it's school, feeling like institutionalized at times and not being able to have the freedom of expression. I think in general that our world in general needs to be more open to different identities and seeing people as humans and being loving and kind to everyone. I hear all the time, I just don't feel like I belong. And that hits me to the core of my being, because I can see that. You know, I navigated the system myself, and feeling alone is something that it's jarring, absolutely jarring. So I think not feeling seen, but not being heard on top of that.
Thank you. And Amanda, what do you see as the stigma as far as accessing mental health?
I think stigma is twofold in many ways. I think we have internal stigma and external stigma. Many of the folks that I see they're afraid to seek out supports and services. We live in a very small community. The agency I work for, we provide supports free to individuals. So I see everybody from every spectrum, whether you're the individual living in poverty on the street or the professor that's working at SUNY Plattsburgh. And the biggest thing that I hear folks when they talk about stigma is they don't want to walk into a place and have their neighbor there identifying that they're there seeking out help. So I think internal stigma is a big component, but I do think there's a lot of external stigma within our small community as well. And folks just not feeling like it's a safe place, a safe community, or a safe, like Rochelle's talking about building safe havens and safe communities. Like, we have a lot of work to do in our community to build up opportunities for people to feel safe enough to come out and say, me too. We've done that in we've done that in the addiction movement, we've done that in the LGBTQIA+ movement, but we haven't done a lot of that work in the mental health movement, and I think people are struggling with being able to raise their hand and say, me too.
Thank you. Rochelle, we're going to come back to you. How is social media affecting the mental health of teenagers and young people?
Yeah, so we already recognize the detriments of social media, and it does exactly what I said we need. It tears apart connectedness, human connectedness. Not only developmentally is it important for communicating, eye contact, being with people, which social media takes away from, but it's disengaging for many youth. And if you think back to our childhood, we just had the people around us to compare ourselves to. But on social media, they have a whole world of individuals, not only to compare themselves to, but also that are showing them new things to do. And some of those things aren't always great. It also exposes them to different influences that can be detrimental to their overall health. So right now, especially with body image and self-harm, social media plays a huge part. But I would be lacks in not also recognizing how parents and caregivers are using social media and not creating the connected relationships and communication that our youth need. So when you have a youth on social media and you have a parent on social media, it really interrupts the bonding and human connectedness that individuals need.
And I'm going to stay right with you. We're going to follow right up on it. How did the pandemic affect their mental health, being away from school and their friends, spending so much time on social media?
So previous to the pandemic, we did see an increase in mental health diagnosis for youth, and it was getting younger and younger. What the pandemic did is it exacerbated what we were already seeing as a trend. So very rapidly, mental health crisis went up for youth, and it negatively affected youth in that it was a societal trauma that we all experienced, and it created an existential threat, meaning that afraid of death, people around us dying. Not only that, social isolation, and they missed important developmental steps that we all have shared in previous generations. So they didn't get to participate in things that were very important to them and helped cultivate that connectiveness that I talked about. So they didn't have their normal social supports. Often, too, some individuals may be struggling at home, and home might not be a safe space, or environments that they were forced to stay in longer created a negative effect on their overall well-being, where schools sometimes give them 2 meals and give them a safe place and safe people to be around.
Thank you. Amanda, what should someone do if they're worried about their mental health or about the mental health of someone they care about?
So I'll start with the first part of the question.
Okay.
So if you're worried about your own mental health, there are local resources available, but I just want to, I guess, step back for a moment, because when we talk about mental health, I think most of us think that people reach out to seek clinical treatment and medication, and that's not just what mental health is. It encompasses a whole body approach to wellness, and so I think in the work that I do, some of my folks do engage in traditional treatment, but some of them won't and don't. And so if you are concerned for your mental health, I think it's important to talk to somebody, whether it be a pastor at the church, whether it be a clinician at a clinic. People find and seek help in different ways, and so I don't want anybody to think like the only way of seeking help is counseling and medication, because again, that goes back to the stigma, right? Like, we don't talk about it because we think those are the only 2 ways you can seek help. So there are, safe people in our community. So I think there's that. I also think, just to throw it out, there's the new 988 number that folks can reach out. You can call it, you can text it, and there's also a chat line on the internet, and you can reach local resources through that if you're not familiar with resources in the area. If you're concerned about a loved one, they may not care that you're concerned about them. Those are some of the families that I get that call my office, and they're concerned about their loved one, but maybe their loved one just doesn't know they're ill. There are outreach programs in the community. Our agency is one of them, and also part of Rochelle's role is to support people in the community who maybe don't even know they're unwell. So from a family member perspective, I would say it's really important to listen and to help support that person where they're at in that given moment, but pushing somebody towards treatment, whether it be, the medication, the counseling, may not always be the answer. So I would say be open and have some open dialogue. Like Keegan mentioned, talk about, I see that you're struggling, what can I do to help you? Because sometimes what you think as a family member would be helpful isn't what they want. And so those are the things that I think people can do. And again, 988 also supports family members as well. So, call it, text it, chat it online. It's an amazing resource that's now available through the nation, and I think it's an opportunity for any one of us to access.
Great. Thank you. Rachel, cost and availability can sometimes be a big hurdle for someone asking for help. What advice do you have for someone facing these challenges?
First off, absolutely. We see this a lot. So I think in my experience, I work with people who are already established with things like Medicaid or other types of insurances. But we've had to navigate systems when someone's insurance has lapsed. So during COVID, we saw a whole bunch of people go without insurance right after because they got something in the mail, which I don't know anyone here that reads everything in the mail, but I certainly don't. And lots of people lost their coverage for a while, and we were, scrambling to make sure that they could get the services that they need. I think to piggyback off of what Amanda said is it's also not pushing people towards, you have to find out what are they actually looking for. So is it a type of clinical services? I like the whole approach where we include clinical services, possibly depending on what the needs are, med management, but also the peer role. I feel like bringing peers into any sort of treatment just strengthens any sort of bond, and we see outcomes just like raising the roof, if you can. So I guess it's a tricky question because, local resources, I point people to places like DSS often. I help people call New York State of Health if they need insurance. That's the barrier to get the services that they need. And it's kind of just supporting someone. So if someone's coming to you, carve out the space for them. You may not have the answer, but how can you help them find it?
Great, thank you. Keegan, you work in the schools, with the schools. What type of challenges do you see in young people compared to adults?
I think what I see the most in young people in comparison to adults is young people seem to be a lot more open about mental health, and we seem to be living in a time where it's still so stigmatized to have a mental illness. So the barriers that I see quite often are that the child is telling me that they're struggling significantly, and my role is to connect them to services. And then I call the parent's like, nope, we don't do that in this house. We don't believe in mental health, we don't believe in mental health treatment. So then I have to find out an additional way to try to provide services to this child, but at the same time also being able to comply with the parent's wishes. I think that something that is challenging the most with our students right now is feeling so attached to their social media and feeling so attached to having to always stay connected, on the phone, on whatever resource it is. I mean, I was having a conversation not less than 8 hours ago with somebody telling me that they aren't able to have a phone, and it brought them into an entire crisis. And I think that there's a big difference between somebody having a phone to be able to talk to their friends versus somebody being so codependent on technology that it leads them to being in their own independent crisis just from not being able to. But we got them extended resources and figured out a safety plan for how we were going to be able to approach that, and got them connected, and everything ended up working out all right for them.
Thank you. Let's go back to the other end, back to Eric. You touched on this a little. How has this project changed your perspective about mental health? Has it changed you as a filmmaker or personally?
It changed me in ways that I can't even describe to any of you. In 2020, I had what I thought was going to be a permanent separation with my father, because I had finally realized that I had become him. And that while I do love my father, and my father was a good father in many ways, he also was unknowingly mentally abusive. I didn't know it until my children and my wife pointed out what I had become. And I hated myself. And I went into a depression. And like I told you before, it was the strength of Sam Fisher and Yaneri and Lydia and McLean and all the other young people. They gave me the strength to try to push through it and try to find a way out. It's a hard road, but man, is it worthwhile. And boy, do you come out a better person after. And we started this film endeavor, January of 2019 is when we started this project. It was a job. It was a career. It's now a mission. It's a mission for you now, in every sense of the word. There's a unintended gift, if you will, pardon it's not exactly the right word, but it is, in a way. There's a gift that you're given by enduring and getting through a hard time. And all you want to do is help other people. It's really remarkable. Every single kid in our film, from ages 11 to 27, they're almost all of them are pursuing careers in ways that are helping people. Psychiatry, psychology, therapy, or just an advocate, a peer support specialist. It's really remarkable, and I am also in that group. I will do this for the rest of my life if I can, helping advocate and speak about this troubling illness that can be overcome, and if people are willing to look past the stigma. It can affect your personality and your demeanor, but it's not you. You know, that's the thing that people don't understand. That's why the stigma comes in. It's not you. And I realized who I really am by experiencing what I experienced. So it's a loaded question when you say, what did I learn from this project and this process personally? I also just wanted to address one thing that the panelists were talking about. You know, early intervention and prevention is so important, and the number one way to do that is education. The very thing I didn't get growing up. One of the things that we have done, and Catherine actually has brought cards, we turned the entire film into a curriculum for school systems. It's been approved by the Association of Secondary School Principals. It is spreading across the country. It is being used. It is speaking to students in school and telling them the voices of their peers, telling them that it's okay to not feel okay. And the best part of it, it's free. And it's available for everyone. It's on a website. Parents can use it. Teachers can use it. Literally anyone can use it. So I encourage you to go to Catherine if you're interested. It's just a website, and it's all there.
Sure, we're right ahead. Okay. Do you have any more questions? I was just going to follow with Sam with one last question, because you're talking about teachers, you're talking about careers. You're now a lead early Head Start teacher. You're on a path to a great career. Do you love what you're doing, and how are you doing now?
I love what I'm doing, mainly because my takeaway from this whole thing was that early matters. And so I basically spend my whole day teaching. Right now, most of my students are 3. There are only like 3 left that are 2. And I spend my whole day teaching them coping skills, regulation skills, breath work, because we practice a conscious discipline method and working with the whole child and their whole family. So my belief is that teaching children young how to cope and do those things, if they face crisis later, they'll maybe have better foundational knowledge of how to deal with those skills later when it happens or if it happens. I know growing up I didn't get that, so anytime anything happened for me, I went left. So I think it's a great thing to start working on, so that's what I do. My associates I'm getting is in early childhood education and childhood development, and then my bachelor's is childhood and adolescent developmental psychology. So it's something that I really care about. I personally think I'm doing really well. I still have really, really bad days because healing isn't linear, and I call out of work and I'll sit home all day and read or, just do whatever, but I think it's okay. I straight up tell my boss, hey, I can't function today. I'm going to stay home because if I go to work, I'm just not going to do anything. So I'm doing good. Still have bad days, but I can cope with them much better now. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for coming thousands of miles to be with us here.
Yeah, I miss New England, and upstate New York is very similar to Vermont in many ways. So it's nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam Fisher. Eric, thank you. Thank you to our panel. We appreciate it. We hope that you got some good information from this. And
Can I just mention one thing?
Yes.
I didn't want to interrupt you when you were sharing, because I do that a lot. The question about health insurance.
Yes.
I just wanted to go back to that for a minute, because I don't want anybody leaving here thinking that if you can't afford treatment, not to seek it. There are ways to access supports and treatment in our community if you don't have health insurance. You mentioned the New York State Health Exchange. There are navigators, but also I know like the county clinic and I think BHSN, they operate on sliding scale fees. If you need help, don't worry about your insurance. Don't worry about the cost. Access it and access it now, because if not, it's going to cost you more in the long run when you're super unwell. So I just wanted to throw that out to everybody.
Amanda, thank you. And thank you to our panel.
Yes. So again, I want to say thank you. I'm going to borrow from Eric a story that he has shared, that there's a village in Africa where there is a bench, and it's called a grandmother's bench. And I've actually told this story a number of times, but thank you, Eric. What stuck with me about the story is that in the community, there were these benches across the community, and grandmothers would sit on them. I suppose there might have been people other than grandmothers, but typically grandmothers would sit on them. And people in the community knew that you could go sit on that bench and talk to that person and just be heard and listened to. And when I heard that story, I placed that story in my heart, and every place I've gone since hearing that, I want to bring that to this community. So I've been here for about 5 months, and holding this event tonight was an opportunity to think about Marsha Brown and Margaret Platt and them saying to this community, where are those sheltering arms? Where are those helping hands? And you are all those people. We are all those people. And we can create those benches in our community. And we can sit in those spots. And we can be those folks that people can come up to and just listen to them. Help people find their person. And that's the beauty of this film. It's the beauty of this evening. And so I hope that you all leave here tonight with a sense of hope, with a sense of hope for our youth, and with a renewed commitment to collaborate and join together to be those helping hands. I have the cards that Eric mentioned, and again, reach out. I'm happy to talk with you more about them, but it is free, and we'll leave them at the back. Grab one if you'd like on your way out. And again, thank you so much for coming tonight.